Welcome to the show that explores the methods and strategies on rocking the financial side of your music business. With over 40 years combined experience, here are your hosts, Chris Webb and Dave Tampkin.
Welcome to Musician's Tip Jar, where we talk about musicians and money. Where we want to remind you to never limit your challenges, but instead challenge your limits. I'm Chris Webb, joined by my co-host, who shows up weekly to stretch his humor and never humorize his stretches, Dave Tampkin.
Talked to Vince this week about his episode, and he said, I'm so sorry. There were some of your jokes that, just went over my head, and I didn't realize you were saying it at the time during our interview. And I said, it's just a bad habit. Please, Vince, don't feel bad. I should just stop these jokes altogether. So we'll see how far I can stretch or not stretch my humor in this episode.
Yeah, it's concerning though when you have to apologize to people later, like, or they're apologizing to you for not getting it.
Well, I guess too, you're being interviewed by someone you don't normally talk to, so you don't know their patterns or their sense of humor or anything. And then, my stuff is just so dry and stupid anyway. They're probably like, that was stupid, and then they just keep going because it's not funny. But they are pre-approved funny by me, so we'll see.
Today we are given the gift of what could be the biggest game changer to staying motivated day in and day out in your business. We also talk band dynamics and the impact of a mentor, all with our guest, Johnny Fiacconi.
Fiacconi!
Today's quote comes from our guest, Johnny. He said, anything is possible when you have a goal. You can just work at it until it happens. And it will happen.
This week, we want to shine a light on a vital Canadian nonprofit called the Unison Fund. If you're a musician in Canada, this is an organization you need to know about. They provide a crucial safety net for the community, offering everything from emergency financial relief in times of crisis to free confidential counseling for mental health and financial challenges. Building a career in music is tough, and Unison is there to make sure no one has to face those struggles alone. Please check them out, support their work if you can, and most importantly, know that they are there for you. Learn more at unisonfund.ca. If you find this information useful, please rate and subscribe to the podcast, and also slam that like button if you're on YouTube so we can help keep you up on the finance side of your music business.
Johnny Fiacconi is a Canadian content creator, drummer, and entrepreneur known for his straight talk insights on band life, the music industry, and creative disciplines. His posts have amassed millions of views on all platforms. As a drummer and a co-founder of the Dreamboats, a retro rock and roll band bringing the energy of the 50s and 60s to modern audiences, Johnny has built an international career blending high-impact performances with behind-the-scenes strategy. Through his content, he pulls back the curtain on what it really takes to run a band today, offering no fluff advice for artists, musicians, and creatives chasing big goals. What's his mission? It's to fire people up, lead by example, and prove that the right mindset and work ethic, anything is possible. Whether you're an artist, a band member, or a creative entrepreneur, Johnny Fiacconi is someone worth watching and listening to, so let's go.
So, Johnny, welcome to the show. Thanks
Hello.
for taking the time out to have us.
Thank you for having me.
You had a late night last night. Where did you play last night?
Last night we were in Laguna Niguel, California. Yes, we were playing 5 shows back to back. It was a lot. So today I got to slightly sleep in, but you can still see the bags under my eyes. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. It's been a while since I've talked to somebody that has stayed up so late playing shows. I feel like everybody in my world right now plays shows till about 10, and then we're asleep by midnight.
I hear you.
Impressed with your schedule.
Sure. Well, our shows don't go that late, but it's just that we always got to drive back, and we live outside of LA, so it's always a 2-hour drive. I'm sure you can get that.
Totally. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Johnny, sometimes Chris is like, 9 a.m. works great for me, and on a Saturday. And I'll have to get up 2 hours before just to get those lines, put some water on my face, do some jumping jacks, feel somewhat normal. And he just always shows up so chipper and ready to go, no matter what time it is. So he's a good person to have a podcast with, I'll tell you that.
The secret is having kids that wake your ass up, no matter what.
Yeah, nature's alarm clocks, I guess.
Yeah. You guys think I'm getting up by choice, but that's not exactly what's happening.
Well, for the record, normally I get up at a reasonable hour. I get up at 7:50 every day, Monday to Friday, even regardless. But Saturday, Sundays, I sleep in that extra little bit after the show night. So I appreciate you guys working around my schedule.
Why the 50? Why 7:50? Is that a snooze buffer?
That gives me 10 minutes to be out of bed, and then I do a little run like first thing in the morning. So the 7:50 has been working well for me, and I still managed to get some kind of sleep in there, I think.
Nice. Our audience just heard all about you, and we'd like to go into a little bit from your point of view on it. But I guess the first question we wanted to talk about was what ignited this passion for music? And if you could, like, what's the earliest musical experience that set you on this path?
I talk about this a lot with my friends. I feel like, well, music and just entertainment in general, I feel like it's something people are born with or aren't. And the only reason I say that is because I've talked to so many people over the years, and just so many people either afraid or they're just all in on it. And I don't know where that came from. It came about very naturally. I was always very musical. Yeah, as long as I could remember, I remember just in grade 1, with my buddies, I remember just singing songs and like harmonizing songs, especially I remember from The Lion King or something, the Timon and Pumbaa song. We were like, I just have these vague memories of like just singing in front of people and harmonizing early on. I don't know where it came from. It was just always ingrained. I always had this passion for the drums. I have the cliche videos, my dad, mom filming me playing on the pots and pans, which is so cool that I have that footage, of me as a little kid, couldn't even talk, and I'm banging away. So I don't know where it came from, but it's been there since I was as long as I can remember.
Did you always sing? You're a great singer while playing drums, or did that come later?
I never sang, although I just said that I sang growing up. Like that was when I was 7. My entire life, I was totally afraid of singing. I never wanted to sing. It came about just in my band. We were just, I felt like I had decent pitch and range, and we were looking to expand and get more harmonies, and it turned into me talking on the mic, to me doing harmonies, to me then singing a song, then to me singing many songs. But if you told me 10 years ago that I would be singing in front of a live audience, I would not have believed you, and that is the honest truth.
Now, were you singing and playing drums through college too? I know you went, for business, but because you're just saying that you recently started, but
Yeah.
again, knowing how well you sing, it's just crazy that you haven't been doing it longer.
I appreciate that. At that point I was only drumming. I've been drumming for a long time, since I was probably about 12 or so. But the singing came about very just like I said, it evolved. But then once I started singing, it was like we played so much that it was just I was singing every day. I went from never singing to singing all the time. All these years later, it's second nature. It's like, it's just like riding a bike and playing the drums and singing and thinking the next song, and just it's just you're thrown in the deep end, and then you just wake up at the end of the show. I'm like, what just happened?
We had a friend that used to ride a bike and play the drums all the time, and then it just band had a hard time keeping up with him.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
He was a roving musician.
Yeah, I don't even know if you're joking or serious right now.
No, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Is that possible? It could be possible. Yeah, unicycle and yeah.
Sometimes, especially just watching as many Instagrams as I have of you over the last few months, there is this kind of feeling of knowing you because you speak so honestly, and we'll get to that. But the joking thing is a bad habit of mine, and I apologize.
I love it.
I feel sometimes people should just know I'm joking. And sometimes it's not the case. So we'll move on from that.
I love it. I'm feeling you guys out. I'm getting it.
And the thing is, Chris won't edit any of this out either, because he'll just bring it home that unless you stop doing this, it won't change.
Hey, I dig it.
Could you tell us a little bit, since we brought up college, just between college and then your experience going into Dreamboats. What was that like, prep for school and knowing that you had a business background and wanted to go into that, to performing all the time? What were your goals right out of college?
Like the goals, I went to university and I got like a degree there, but I always knew I wanted to do music. So after university, I did a 1 year course, entertainment business management. I wanted to get into the business side and managing bands. And then as soon as, when that year started of entertainment business management, that was when my band formed, like the Dreamboats. We just all got together and we had an impromptu jam that turned into just playing all these retro tunes. And then me and the singer were like, oh, let's do this, So it worked out really well because that started at the beginning of this college course that I was doing. And then so for the entire year, anytime there was a project or an assignment that we had to do, I would automatically default to just doing it for my band, as opposed to other people. Maybe they had to find a band to work with. I was like, I'm just going to do it for my band. So it really worked out well. Hey, we're going to work on an artist bio. And then I was like, oh, do it for my band. Or we got to do a business plan. I'm like, do it for my band. So it really worked out. And then all of the teachers and professors there were all people who were very successful in the music business, specifically the Canadian music business, because I'm originally from Canada.
I couldn't tell that.
I hear that all the time. I'm out here. So yeah, it came about naturally. And then as soon as that year was done, I auditioned for a band, this touring band, that I knew the old drummer, and I knew they were always touring. A bit of an infamous band in Canada called White Cowbell, Oklahoma. And if you look up the videos, you will know what I mean. There's like chainsaws and things get lit on fire. It's like a whole rock and roll circus. I auditioned kind of on a whim. And then they were just like, oh, you're a top contender. And I'm like, I wasn't anticipating that. So it literally went into, I did a few more auditions. They're like, well, here are the tour dates and we're hitting the road. And I'd never been on the road before. And I just jumped into this like cross Canada tour right after that college course. All the while, the Dreamboats, my band, was in its, it was just being birthed. It had only been under a year. So I was juggling those two bands for a while, but the Dreamboats was always my baby. But that's what happened right after that course. I just I hit the road immediately. It was pretty cool. Yeah.
Well, definitely a different aesthetic from what you just described to the Dreamboats.
Yes, but I totally, but I took so much from White Cowbell, Oklahoma, because it's just all show and antics, and it's all about creating like stuff that people are going to be like, whoa, that guy just cut stuff up with a chainsaw, or like, whoa, like that guy just lit that thing on fire, or like we had 3 guitar players with 3 Marshall stacks, and it was just, it was a whole spectacle, and you were encouraged to do whatever was crazy. Like the lead guitar player would just bowl himself into my drums and just explode the drums. So then whenever we would do Dreamboat stuff, I'd come back from tour. I'm like, oh guys, we gotta do this, or merch idea or something. So I took so much from that band. All of the G-rated stuff from that band I put into the Dreamboats. All of the PG-13 and plus stuff did not go to the Dreamboats, and for good reason. For good reason.
So how did you go from that band to saying, okay, I'm going to have to put the PG-13 stuff aside now, because now the Dreamboats is starting to take off?
I just felt like, what's so cool about just everything I talk about is that when I was with White Cowbell, I was not the leader. I was just like the drummer. You know what I mean? So I've experienced that side of being in a band. And then with the Dreamboats, like me and the singer, we were the creators. So we were the ones calling the shots, dreaming big, coming up with the goals, and getting excited about stuff. So I had that end. So I've experienced both sides of being in a band, and just with the Dreamboats, it's like it was taking off more. We were more fired up. We were excited. We were like, oh, we got to go, play in Liverpool at the Cavern Club because we're huge Beatles fans. And then it was like, okay, let's do it, and then we book it, and then, let's go on a tour, and we would do it, and we were calling the shots, and things just started really growing. Whereas with the other band, like I said, I was just a drummer, but I learned a lot from that too, on how to just be reliable and learning my parts and showing up in a good headspace and not causing problems for the band leader, so but yeah, eventually just the Dreamboats were getting more gigs, and I was kind of screwing them over by going on tour with the other band. They would have to scramble and find someone, and it didn't feel good. I couldn't in the right mind feel like I was contributing and being a leader of that band, and then going off and playing with another band. But this was in the very early days of the Dreamboats. Like, this was like a passion thing for us. This was like a shameless, like, favorite band of ours that just started really growing, so it's not like I was abandoning anything major at that point. But once I left the other band, the Dreamboats just really started taking off, just dedicating all my time to it.
It's fun to talk to you a little bit about the band dynamic, because if you're looking at original bands out there right now, nobody's making the charts anymore. You know what I mean? Like, it's harder, but I do think live people still really love seeing a full band. That is really, I think, where people really are going to keep the band thing alive, is because we enjoy that energy that's created by the dynamics between musicians. Two questions I want to ask about the band stuff. The first one is, like, how did you guys delegate roles? Like, it sounds like it's not like you're like saying I'm the band leader and they don't know it, right? Like, you guys have set rules or roles for each of you. Can we talk a little bit about how you decided that and who was going to do what? Or did you talk about it, or did it naturally just sort of occur?
It really naturally occurred. Like I said, it's been a progression. We've been doing the band for just over 15 years at this point. I had hair when we started, let's put it that way. And the roles just naturally kind of came, like I get really excited about things and I get fired up, and it would just be like, I'd be like, hey, I feel like doing this, or hey, we need to do a vinyl. And then I would just spearhead it, and I would, we need to print a set list, and then I would just do it, but what happened with that is that I ended up taking on just so many roles, and that can lead to burnout, or that can lead to resentment, and then just a lot of band meetings would happen over the years where I'd say, hey, I need help with this, or could someone do this, and then people would volunteer and they would do it, and it would just evolve in that way. But at the end of the day, I would see myself as like the overseer at this point, because I just have such a grasp on the whole business, all the finances, the visa being down here in the States, just the back end of the website. And I like doing that stuff, but I think it's important to not burn out doing that. And it's been hard for me to ask for help over the years, but everyone pulls their weight. Like our bass player, Justin, he does a lot of the logistics, like the tour logistics now. Our singer, Chris, he's more like the show, getting things together, the dance moves, working over the harmonies with people. And then I'm kind of like, starting to build a team. We have an admin assistant now. We had a merch person. We've been working through that. We have a booking agent, in different capacities. So I'm always trying to be the guy who's doing the vision and the long-term stuff at this point anyways. I don't want to be bogged down by the day-to-day, but the roles just came about naturally. I was the first one to quit my like day job and be like, oh, now I can really get to work. You know what I mean? While people were still working.
Awesome.
So I've always just been that guy. I get excited about things. If I see a path and there's an idea there, I get really excited about it. And so I kind of took a lot of that on naturally.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like even when you studied at the university, you already knew that aspect, the business aspect, was something you were going to enjoy doing.
Yeah, like for whatever reason, I even the idea of working with a band, like that got me excited. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna find a band, and then I just feel like I could just work forever and just like anything's possible. And I don't know where that really came from or why that is, but yeah, I just and that's what I try to talk about on the channel too, is just that I feel like anything's possible if you have like some kind of goal. I just feel like you could just work at it until it happens, and it'll happen. Maybe that's naive of me, but it's been working,
Well, you manifest it, something we talk about a lot too.
Sure.
What you're going to focus on is what's going to happen.
Yes, 100%. 100%. I do that. I just posted a video the other day of just a cool new thing I've been doing is just reading my goals like daily. I got a little planner right on the floor there next next to my bed, and I just every morning I've been doing that, and it's been over a year now that I've been doing that. And that just talk about aligning stuff. It's like when you're constantly reminded, it's like, yeah, I got to do that. At some point you're gonna do it. That day you have off, it's like, okay, now I gotta do it. So I'm all about that.
Yeah.
I sent that post to Chris, and he finally had to say, I've been following him now too. Please stop sending me all these posts. Like, I'm seeing them as well, Dave.
I get it.
Take it easy.
I get it.
And I said, well, it's nice he plans his goals. He has somewhere to put them, because we were just talking about, manifesting and, having like a dream board or have expectations or things where you can visually see something, which is what you're doing. And I always go to Pinterest because I get to look at all the tattoos that I want. And that always goes to a different story for me. And
sure,
it's like, you can write it down. You don't have to go on Pinterest. And I'm like, but there's no tattoos in my journal. And I'm just glad that, you don't need that kind of motivation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing is, I think it's tough to like stay motivated. You got to come up with these systems. I'm always reading the books, like Atomic Habits. That was like a really good book. I don't know if you've heard of it or read it.
Yeah. He's actually he just lived in Boulder up Baseline. Yeah.
That's so cool.
In Colorado.
Yeah, that's great. And I find like even with the books too, it's like you can read a book, but if you don't actually take the time to write down something from that book, it's just going to be, oh, that's nice. That's nice. And then the book is done and then you forget about it. But it's like actually doing something is the thing that most people don't do, and rightfully so. It's very difficult, but if you do care about doing something, you got to do it. And it's like, I think it was that book where they were even, oh no, it wasn't that one. It was another one I was reading, is like having your own personal like mission statement. It sounds cheesy, but it's like, I read that too. I got this like whole, it's like right here. I didn't even since we're getting right into this. But
yes,
I got this this book that I fill out. It's like the daily planner, and then I have this sheet now that I like got to read to myself. It's all mangled, but it's like it's long too. It's like a mission
does look
statement.
longer than you
then
think.
on the back are the goals that I read. Right there. I know awesome. it's I'm not, and I feel weird when I talk about this stuff because I don't want people to think like I'm trying to act like I'm better than anyone or have anyone figured out. I said this in my video, but all I'm saying is that it's helped me so much to have no excuses about anything. It's just like, say I'm going to do it. And if I don't do it, well, like, how do I make sure it happens? I'm like, I got to write it down. That's it. I don't want to ever feel like someone could call me lazy or unmotivated or that I don't get things done. I'm afraid I'm going to blink and wake up one day. Like I said this in my video, it's true. I just rant like this. I don't want to wake up one day and feel like I'm 90 and everything blew by. And I was like, I didn't do that thing. And it just because I like spent my day just doom scrolling on my phone,
Yeah.
Was this something that but previously you were like the opposite of? Was this something that like you've learned the hard way over the years of maybe looking back and realizing that this was something that you needed to work on? Or were you always on top of your shit like that?
No, I wouldn't do like a daily thing, but I will say I was always like, when it came to school, my mom was a teacher, and it was always like, you got to get your homework done. Make sure it was done. Like I never missed a deadline. I never like skipped. I was like good student. I didn't like it necessarily, but I got it done. And I think, I've met a lot of musicians, people skipping and doing all that stuff. And I was like,
totally.
Did I really need to do all that or put all that effort in? But I've realized that effort has translated into me being able to hit like a deadline. And I think that's a lot of things that a lot of people can't do. And, once you start hitting a deadline, you feel like, well, I can just accomplish a lot of things. And so I've always been able to get things done that I've really wanted to, but filling out a book now, this has enabled me to get the things done that maybe I don't want to get done, but that should get done. Necessary steps to a next goal. So that's like amplified things huge. Like the reason I started my channel is because I've been writing it down and I have to get it done. It's part of the game plan for the day, and I have to do it. If you did read Atomic Habits, it's about stacking these things, and just the fact that I'm like, okay, I can dedicate 10 minutes every morning to filling out this daily planner. From there, then I'm like, oh, I can tag on another 10 minutes to do my run in the morning, and I can stack another little thing because it starts getting nuts. And I think it's just important to start with some formula that works for you if you want to get things done and if you want to grow something. Like you guys have something going here. You're doing this podcast and it's growing. We got this awesome setup here. It's like you guys are doing something that takes action, and like it takes a lot of it takes a lot of action, and it's hard. So I respect you guys for doing this. Like seriously.
Thanks for saying that. Appreciate it. It is one of the few things that we show up no matter what. It's, not like it's paying the bills or anything like that. It's something that it's just a genuine passion to show up. Not only do we get to share these stories with people that listen, but we're learning from you too. And we're always learning. We're always trying to be better, and not so much in the way like you said. I think the only weird thing about talking about what you just said about writing things down, the weird thing is not more people, especially musicians, they don't talk about it. That's weird to me, because any product, any business started with somebody saying, hey, I got to write this stuff down. Then it turns into something larger, where then you have weekly meetings about this. Why is it so weird that we want to do that for our own lives?
Yeah. And I think, even just your whole podcast in general, it's like treating music as a business. That's always treating art in general as a business is a tough thing to bring up. It's very divided there. And, but at the end of the day, it is a business if you want it to be your career. You know what I mean? And I think to think that it's not is very naive. In terms of the art itself, you can keep that true to yourself, but then it's like, you go down these little rabbit holes where it's like, well, if I want to have a career in this, then I got to create music that people will like. So it's like at some point, you got to be true to your art, but you also then either have to find people who would listen to this noise that you're doing for 7 minutes. You got to find that niche. So you got to be a good marketer, or it's like you got to do music that's a little more appealing to a mass audience. And then you got to at some point you got to treat it like a business, or you could just keep putting music out and hoping. And as a mentor of ours says, hope is not a strategy. It's you can't live off of that.
Now, when you say a mentor of yours, we talk about that too in some of our podcasts.
Nice.
Can you expound on that? Is that a close friend, someone you've known for a while, or is that someone you follow?
Yes, he's a mentor of the band. We have 3 or 4. It depends what era of the band, but he was the reason our whole band moved from Toronto, Canada, Mississauga, Canada, to California. We're all living in this house together out in beautiful Palm Springs, California, because of this guy. He's the president of a countertop company, and he's like self-made. He's from Toronto as well. His business does work down here in California, and he brought us out here. His company sponsors a big event down here. They're the main sponsor of Modernism Week. And he was like, he met us in Toronto. He's like, how much is it going to take for you guys to get down to California? And I'm like, yeah, how many people have talked about bringing your band somewhere? We're like, okay, sure, buddy. So he's like, no, I'm serious. Give me a number. So I gave him a number. It was pretty high. And he was like, done, make it happen. I was like, okay. So in him doing that, I had to learn how to get a U.S. visa. We had to join the union, the AFM, to get the visa. It caused us it forced us to form our business, like a bank account and like the actual like legitimate business. So all these growing pains were forced to happen. And then as soon as we got down here, he has a house in California and in Canada. We were sitting in his hot tub after that first show, and he was just like, boys, cancel those tickets home. We're like, nah. Like, what are you talking about? We got gigs at home. He's like, burn the boats, just be down here. And we're like, no. So then every time that we started getting more work, and we would do fly-ins back to California, and every time he'd sit there, we'd be in his hot tub, and he'd have this like very inspirational chat, and he'd be like, boys, what are you doing in Canada? And we love Canada, for the record. But he's just like, this is the entertainment capital of the world. You have an inn now. I gave you this inn. Why aren't you down here? And it was like, took years. And then finally we came down here, and he's just been Mike Heatherman. He's been one of those guys who's just constantly pushed us. Whenever we have a cool idea, we'll, and we're hanging with Mike, we'll say it. We're like, hey, Mike, we're thinking of going to tour like Japan or something. He'd be like, why are you touring Japan? He's like, the money's here. What are you going to, are they good opportunities? We're like, well, no. He's like, so you're going for fun? We're like, yeah. He's like, yeah, but you could be doing here just to get, he'll just like always shake us up a little bit. And we're like, okay, he's right. But he is right. He is.
So what are a few of the things you've learned from that as far as how do you decide whether to take a gig or not?
Yeah. I talk about this on the channel all the time. Taking a gig, it's either opportunity or money. At this point, I think if you're a new band, it's like you kind of are taking what you can get. You're building your profile. You want to get shows. You want to get pictures of you playing shows. You want to get confident on stage. But at some point, I think there's bands that are sometimes, like 5-10 years into it. And it's just anytime someone calls them, they're just like, yeah, let's do it. And it's some, I don't know, some like outdoor, like event where no one is there and people are just walking past you. And that's okay if you're a hobby band, but if you got to be real with yourself. If you want to be making more money or you want to grow, it's like you have to have high expectations, set high goals. And at some point, once you start hitting those goals, you're going to have to say no to things. And that's a very difficult thing. I remember when the Dreamboats were playing bars in the early days, it was like, I don't know here, but in Canada, it was like $400 to $500 a gig. That's what it was. Everyone makes $100 Canadian. That's like 10 bucks here. But, and I remember the first venue we were talking as a band. We're like, we can't be doing these anymore. We got to be making, I remember $700. That was the number. And this one venue, people would come out to see us. And then the owner was like, can I book you again? I'm like, George, we can't do it, man. He's like, why? I'm like, well, there's other venues that are going to be offering us more and you're offering us 500. I'm like, it doesn't make business sense. We have to take these other gigs. And then he was pleading with me. He was like, no, I'll do it. I'll give you 7. I'm like, yeah, but to be honest, like in a year's time, we're going to be hitting 1,000, and that was true because we'd start to get into the private stuff. So then not only did he increase it, but I was like, and just so you know, like this is just going to be for a couple of gigs. And then it really grew. But we had the clout. We had people coming to our shows. We were doing 50s, 60s covers. People would come out and, we found a niche there where we were a young band playing oldies tunes, whereas most of the oldies bands were oldies, older people doing it. So we found a niche. We had people coming out. We were constantly improving, and that was like a bargaining chip for us. So, we're just at the point now where it's got to hit our rates, or it's got to be a really good opportunity.
Chris, your daily routine does not have to be perfect. It has to start with some little win. And that's what Johnny does every morning. 10 minutes. That's key to change the rest of your day. You get in that routine, what's your next one? Just little habits of success.
Yeah, I love those. And you can tell that it's really made a difference for him. Like he really has gotten a lot out of it. And I found that my routines are really sacred to me too. And that's the hardest part about traveling, actually. And I think what he's picked is a good one because it's easy to do no matter what, if you're traveling or if you're at home, as we know a lot of artists are touring a lot. And it can be harder to keep certain routines, like the ice bath I can't take with me, right? There's a thing that I do where I like, this is going to sound really silly probably, but I smile for like 10 to 15 seconds. I force myself to smile. First thing I do in the morning. I don't get out of bed for it. You know what I mean? We've talked about these things in our routine before, but that part of mine is to just smile because I just think what you're doing, a guru once said, is whatever you're getting back from life is what you're giving it, in the sense that you have to think of life as a mirror, right? So it's not going to smile at you until you're smiling back, right? So that's the concept there. But I think that these kind of little things like this really can build up to becoming something have a larger impact that maybe you don't see it in the initial effort, but you start to accumulate results from these things.
No, agree. There's plenty of science on that, just smiling triggers those chemicals in the brain to put you in a good mood.
Well, he started with this unique journey. I think this is our first Canadian, right, we've ever had. We could have a whole nother podcast. We never got to ask him about how, the immigration stuff really works and some ins and outs of that. We didn't get to talk to him about tax write-offs and filing taxes as a Canadian citizen and working here in the United States. So there was a lot we could definitely circle back on with these discussions. I really enjoy hearing how someone finds themselves becoming an artist. And this is one of those things, again, where we see this a lot, that they all the stories are similar in that we don't really have a question about whether or not we want it. We just sort of find ourselves wanting it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And with that, he also talked about where he started as a musician, and that even as he developed, he started new things and like singing later in his career, which was nice to hear because you like to make fun of me about all my instruments that I don't know how to play in this room. So, there's still hope, growth happens out of necessity and evolution within a band. And then you can discover those talents, and it doesn't matter how old you are.
Is it true that John Mayer didn't start playing guitar until high school? I feel like I heard that.
I'm not sure. I'll call him after this episode.
Okay. Well, I like that he went to business school. I think it's a nice compromise to be like, I'm going to study business, but in the music industry. I like that kind of compromise for people that aren't really quite sure how they're going to end up in the art world, but know the value that the business understanding is going to bring them no matter what.
We learn different sets of skills as we go through this journey and figuring out how to market ourselves, how to record things differently on our own rather than going to studios. There's so many different facets to this career. And we've talked plenty of times about how to take those skills and expand them into maybe micro careers or, micro side jobs, just something to make an income so you can continue playing music, being that your goal. So why not the opposite too? If you're doing other things, getting educated elsewhere, take that information and bring it into your music career.
And sometimes we don't even know how we're going to end up using some of these skills, right?
Yeah.
Odd jobs along the way. I think that a lot of us, we really know what the value of them is. And then down the road, we're like, oh, I'm so glad I learned all these sales techniques, or I'm so glad that for him, studied all these different aspects of the business end of things, because it's really come in handy for this band that he formed. And I think we are all going to be in different groups along, the years, and we're going to find ourselves in different dynamics. But there's so much to finding a group of people that you work well with if you're going to be in a band together. And on top of that, you're going to live together and all the other things they're doing.
It's so crucial to be able to communicate openly about not only the different roles that you play in a band, but how you view things in your personal life, how you support each other, how you're there when they need you most, not just because you have to get to a gig. And I think we've said this plenty of times that being in a band is 75% hanging out, and then the 25% is taking that energy and bringing it to the stage and making good music together. And if you can't do the 75% well, I'd hate to hear what the 25% sounds like.
The thing is, for me, like I think if you ever say, oh, we should start a band to someone that's a musician that you're impressed with, that should be the first reason that you even think of this. But if they say, well, I've never been in a band before, I think you should run. I think you should turn around and go away unless you guys are really young. Because it's sort of like a relationship, right? It's sort of like a romantic relationship, in that you learn how to do this stuff, right? Like you learn how to commit to a group and what it might take to be good fit for that group and a good contributor to it. And so if it's your first band, it's going to be a rough rodeo.
Well, Chedzilla and I, the first time we met, I asked him if he wanted to go grab some brunch or lunch to sit down, and he hadn't heard anything of mine. I haven't ever heard him play. It was just people telling us, hey, you guys should meet. And that was more important to me to see how that flowed before I ever heard him play drums. And honestly, I asked him, I'm like, hey, are you comfortable playing this gig? And he said, yeah, sure. If you're comfortable having me, it sounds like we like some of the same music. We have the same work ethic. Let's show up and do it. And neither one of us had heard anything before, but we're like, hey, we believe in the 75% that we just hung out and were able to get along. I'm sure we could put something good together. And it's been years of great times in
Right.
music.
Well, and if he had sucked, that would have turned out a much different story.
Yeah, but I think
But you knew
Yeah.
he didn't because his accolades were there.
Yeah.
Yeah. At 12 years old, when people are maybe starting in a band, there's not many accolades to list.
True.
Church choir. So using other bands to learn how to do what you're doing is really a part of the process. So I like that he talked about that White Cowbell Oklahoma group and how much he learned from that before he was kind of ready to commit to his other group. And I just think that's a process. I think that is such a valuable part of learning how to work in a group and learning what works on stage and all of those things that you just can't really get from school. You can't learn those things until you try them or experience them.
And being a part of a team is just as important as trying to lead one. You need to know how to work together to learn a skill set to be able to push everyone forward. So through watching completion of these professional tasks that are going on around you, not only till you see how it's done from someone that you respect and can learn from, I think that you have the confidence to try it yourself and be successful at it.
Well, and it's true that living together, it's really its own thing. Like it's having roommates is one thing, and then working together is the other. That's why a lot of married couples would never work together as well as be married, because it's a lot to ask. It's a whole thing. Did I ever tell you the story? Like when I first came to Boulder, I was on tour with my band from Chicago, and we loved Boulder so much that I was like, we should move here, you know? And so we had been together for years in Chicago, doing well as a band. When we moved to Boulder, the only way to afford it was to live together. And I think within 2 months, someone was throwing a Christmas tree through the front window of that place. Like, that's not an exaggeration. That happened. And yeah, the band disintegrated in 2 months of living together. So it was like years of constructive, there were always drama. There was always drama in the band, but it never came to a point where it was going to break up. 2 months in living together, it just fell apart.
Not only are you going to part from a band situation like that, but how do you guys move out and get away from each other after that?
Yeah, it took months. I mean, my girlfriend broke up with me, started sleeping with one of the bandmates in the next room. It's just so cliche, you know what I mean? Like, come on, like, how is this all going down? That's why I was like, all right, fine, I'm just going to go back to school. That's when I ended up going back and getting my degrees, because I was in Boulder, and I was like, I might as well go to school here, because I had finished 2 years in Chicago and then stopped for my undergrad. So yeah, that was like, it was sort of like you better come up with plan B, or like dive into this a little deeper, because you learn so much on the road that, and a lot of times is what you're learning is what you don't know, right? It's what you're learning is what you might be benefiting from learning. And that actually is what brought me back to getting a degree.
I would have thrown that roommate right out of the window right after that Christmas tree.
Yeah. Yeah.
This episode ended with the idea of what he looks at in order to take a gig, and a lesson for all of us to have those values written out. What's your goal from a gig? Is it to make money? Is it to get exposure? And if it meets those financial requirements, and you can say, hey, I'm going to get some more fans out of this and push our career forward, then yeah, let's do it. And if neither of them are there, maybe you need to say no faster than yes.
And that might have been part of the problem I experienced when I moved to Boulder. We probably didn't have very long of a list of like what our goals were. We probably had like move to Boulder. And that was okay, check. And now what? Now we just started going at it. It's like you need to have these things, these long-term plans and goals, so that you can keep yourself focused, because it really will distract you from the little stuff that can sometimes get out of control, especially in your youth. So I liked his hope is not a strategy. I liked that concept of using a mentor to like help clear your head, especially when you're younger. You really don't see everything. You can't, because you haven't been through it yet. A mentor and someone that has a strong sense of business or a strong sense in the music community, whichever you're needing, or both, is really a huge asset as you are growing.
And it keeps you focused on the business part of it as well, because all your roommates, everyone that you move from Canada to the United States, you have to be on the same page to be able to pay your bills together, pay rent, get to show on time. All of those things had to be aligned. Otherwise, you don't have a sustainable career moving forward if you're not.
And so this is going to be our action step for the week. We want you to start your big goal one sheet. We call it a one sheet because it's supposed to be all on one piece of paper. Start with what you have already conscious, easy stuff that you know, and then write that down, and let's just start doing what Johnny said and read it every morning. If this takes you 10 minutes, you're going to still survive. In fact, the idea is it's going to maybe change everything and cause you to make a lot more progress a lot quicker.
Should we also say smile while you're doing that for 10 minutes?
You should be smiling.
Yes, you should.
Or the smile can take the 10 seconds before that. Mine is even shorter, 10 times shorter. Is that 10 times? Whatever. But the idea might be that making this a part of your morning routine can all of a sudden help you with your focus. In the show notes, we also have a link to Johnny discussing this habit directly from his post, so you can hear it directly from him too. We know that your time is valuable, and we appreciate you spending this time with us and being a part of this community. It is our hope that you feel that sense of community here at Musicians Tip Jar, and that you'll help spread the word to make us all stronger. If you'd like to get a hold of us or Johnny, what's the best way to do that?
Check out Musicians Tip Jar for tools, resources, and discounts built specifically to help keep you up on the finance side of your music business. Reach out to us anytime at musicianstipjar@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your story. If this episode resonates with you, share it with a friend, leave a review, or hit the like button if you're watching on YouTube. It helps grow this community and support musicians like you. Please check out Johnny's band, the Dreamboats, at thedreamboatsband.com. You could also find his band on Instagram, /The Dreamboats, and check out his from the front of his seat, coffee in hand, pointers, tips, whatever. You never know what he's going to say. Fiacconi. Check out Johnny's Instagram at instagram.com /Johnny Fiacconi.
You want to spell it?
JohnnyFiacconi.
As always, thank you for joining us, and remember, there is already enough for everyone. You just need to know how to get it. Until next time, on behalf of Dave Tamkin and myself, Chris Webb, stay happy, healthy, and wealthy. Don't watch the metronome. Do what it does. Keep going. This is Musicians Tip Jar.
Oh Lord, I could use somebody. I could use somebody. I could use somebody.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, business, or financial professional for individualized advice. Individual results are not guaranteed, and all discussed strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The hosts are operating on behalf of Musicians Tip Jar LLC exclusively.
Could use a little help here. Could use some help. Could use a little help here.